Welcome to Friday
Friday
with Friends.
with Friends.
So
Was
bad
that
over Zoom.
better?
No,
Was that better than the last one?
nope. Still as bad. Still bad. But hey, that works.
We're trying.
We're trying. So thank you so much for tuning into Fridays with Friends. It's our opportunity to talk about what's going on in the market, answer any questions you might have, so that if you have any real estate needs, we'd love the opportunity to be your realtors of choice. So
Perfect.
this is the perfect time that we need to be answering a whole heck of a lot of questions. And we've been getting tons of questions about what the market looks like and speaking to all of the changes that are happening. But what we really want to talk about today is this virtual market and what it looks like.
Exactly. So what we're really diving into is the 5 steps to selling your home in a virtual market. So we're really sticking to the selling side because buying, selling, it's all different. And as we know, as we talked about in our last Friday with Friends episode, everything is changing all the time. So what we're really trying to do is come up with this virtual game plan for now or in the future, because ever since we got into this shutdown, so much new technology has come out, and we don't see that going away even if the mandate's lifted.
Exactly. And it's because, one, the buyers like the convenience of having a virtual tour. And some agents offered them, some agents didn't. And now the majority of agents are stepping up to say, I'm providing this virtual tour. It means the sellers aren't displaced for every showing. It means the buyers do not have to leave their house, and they can look at 10 houses and it's just like they're going through it. So this virtual market doesn't mean it's going to be, we don't think, like you said, with the mandates lifted, the virtual market's gone. The virtual market is going to be here for a long time due to ease and convenience that we have found. But second, due to the fact that we know that as all of this is lifted, there are going to be people, maybe particular buyer pools, like 55 and over buyer pools, that are not as comfortable going out to see houses. And we want to make sure that when we are marketing the property, we are able to market it to everyone. So we know from our team, and what we're encouraging in this local real estate market, is to keep this virtual market going. However, adding as much in person as possible once all of this lifts, making sure buyers are comfortable and not having to have a bunch of restrictions, but still having the virtual market available.
Exactly. So this is very important for right now, but also for the future as we just continue to see technology and the virtual side continuing to evolve. And that's why I've been getting this question from a ton of sellers that said, okay, back in December, can you believe it's at the end of April? It's almost May.
Cannot.
I'm like, wasn't it just Christmas?
Well, it's not helping that it's snowing too. I'm like,
True. But so we had so many sellers that we met with, let's say in the fall or the winter, and they said, okay, our goal is to be ready by the spring because we want to get the house listed, get into our new house before the summer, before school starts. And that's a lot of people's plan, is the spring market. I want to put my house on the market then. And now we're in this point where, do they move forward or do they wait? And what's neat is there are all these options to say, if you want to, it's possible. And that's where we're going to get into the steps to make sure that it's the right decision for you.
I love it. And what I'll do is let me share some stats really fast. So
we love our stats.
And what we're looking for is how much business is still happening despite very heavy mandates and restrictions on what we can do. And here are the quick stats. In Monroe County, last year at this exact same time, so the 23rd of March is when shutdown happened until when we are actually recording this, which is the end of April, there have been 459 new properties that hit the market this year. Compared to last year, there were 1,086 new properties that hit the market. So that is a decrease of 58%. However, I do want to say 42% of business is still out there. Like, it's not like there's no business at all. On the pending side, we went from last year, 926 properties went under contract during this time frame, and currently there are 393 that went under contract. A decrease of 57%, but still 43%.
Right. What's super interesting about that is, so you see, okay, were these many houses on the market. Now there's this many, but they're all still selling for the most part. The virtual tours are working and buyers are still writing offers, sellers are still selling, which is really neat. So if you thought, wow, the inventory of homes was so low last year at this point, now it's even lower by what, 50%?
Mm-hmm. And the interesting stat is the days on market for those pending properties in Monroe County is 6. So
wow.
On average, it takes 6 days for properties to go under contract after they list. So
wow.
There's motivated buyers and motivated sellers out there right now. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Ontario County has been hit a bit more dramatically. So we went from last year at the same time, 210 new listings down to 58 new listings, which is a decrease of over 70%. And pendings went from 120 last year to this segment of time, we're only at 39. So again, up towards 70%. So is there still 30% of business going on? There sure is. It's still out there, but it's not moving and shaking the way that Monroe County is strong.
Yeah. And we always see that generally in our stats that Ontario County is a little bit slower than Monroe County overall. So that's not a big, surprise to me that we're seeing Ontario County is a little slower. Would you agree?
Great point. Great point. So the reason we wanted to start by kind of sharing this, everyone that's listening, is that we want you to know business is still being done. And we are excited, as we start to get into it, to have you start to hear the questions that have been coming up in the last month so that you're really, really prepared and can answer. Do you want to enter this market right now? Or let's say you want to enter this market in 3 months. You still have these questions that will have to be answered based on your comfort level and based on what we feel your buyer's comfort level is to coming into the house.
Yes.
So okay, Abby, what are the steps? Or are we ready to get into
Perfect. It? Yeah, let's do it. Oh my gosh, we both did that at the same time.
Oh wait, do the disclaimer first. We wanted to do the disclaimer. In the disclaimer is when we are recording this, everything can change in an hour.
Yes.
Everything can change. So we are going to talk very general, not like you're allowed to do this and you're not allowed to do this, because we truly don't know. So whenever you are listening to this right now, check with your local realtor, check with us, reach out to us and be like, Mandy, what are we allowed to do right now? Abby, what are we allowed to do right now? We are having a disclaimer that we are talking about options, things you need to ask questions to see what you're comfortable with, but there may be restrictions on what you can and can't do based on when you're hearing this. Okay.
Perfect. Love it. Okay. So let's talk about the first step. So we have the 5 steps to selling your home virtually. The step 1 is really sitting, reflecting, and making a game plan and asking yourself questions about why do you want to sell your house? Is there that time sensitive nature? But also, what do you feel comfortable with? So questions like, are you okay allowing anyone in your house? Whether those are buyers, agents, photographers, inspectors, appraisals, things like that. And really saying, what is my comfort level with allowing any person into my house is the first question that you really want to answer and ask yourself.
And the reason why we felt this is so important to start with is because when you're in the heat of it, you're like, yeah, let's have whoever come in. But to know that like you do have the opportunity to say, I do not want a single person into my house. And you know what? We can probably still sell your house. Like we've done it. We have done it. If you don't want a single person into your house, we will find a way. However, we need to manage the expectations of anyone entering into an agreement with us to let them know that.
Right.
So that they're okay and comfortable with it, really buying it sight unseen, but doing as much virtually as we can. I think what's also important about it too is to know, like, are you comfortable letting buyers in your house versus agents? With a buyer, if they're coming in, they might be coming in with literally no one else. Like you just open the door, they could walk into your house and maybe you have cameras, maybe you don't. Like, are you comfortable with that? Or if it's a licensed agent who's registered, okay, I'm comfortable with that. Or are you comfortable with one buyer, but you're not comfortable with 20 buyers? So there's so many different questions are so simple, but we really need you to get thinking about those before you get into the emotional side of like, my house is in the market and someone wants to see it. What are you comfortable with? Think about it clearly now.
Exactly. What a lot of our sellers seem to feel comfortable with is, I do not want the showings happening, which we want to stick to virtual showings, those virtual tours. But at the end of the day, people like photographers, inspectors, appraisers, those people are deemed essential. And if we can make sure we're doing that in the safest way possible. So a buyer can get a mortgage and maybe they need that appraisal and the banks have been deemed essential. Okay, I feel comfortable with them, but I don't want buyers or agents walking through the house. So we go with that virtual route to get the house under contract. And then when we're getting to the closing table, maybe, okay, we feel comfortable with an appraiser coming in for 10 minutes. They've got all the protective gear on. I leave all the lights on and all the doors open. So they literally just walk through and look at everything and not have to touch things. So there's literally a million different routes that you could go of, yes, I feel comfortable with this scenario. No, I don't feel comfortable with this scenario. And as long as we have a game plan, we can hit the market and manage expectations, just like you said.
Oh, I love it. I love it. And I think it's a lot of times it's just entering into the conversation with your agent, just saying, what are my options? What would it look like for an appraiser to come through my property? And just to really see how seriously everyone is taking this, to make sure that our sellers are comfortable, that it's not like the appraiser is not walking in completely carefree. They are completely masked up.
Yes.
And, frankly, over the top in a good way, to make sure that the sellers are comfortable, if that helps or not.
Yep, exactly. And that's what is important to remember too, is everyone's on the same page. Everyone wants to get a house, if they want to sell it, buy it, and get to the closing table. So that's why people are doing what they can to get the job done, but also be ultra safe and smart along the way as well.
Yes, I love it. Okay,
cool.
So number one, just asking yourself the questions, those important questions to make a game plan before you go live regarding virtual or in-person people coming through your house. All right. So step number 2 is you have to prepare your house. You still have to prepare your house. So sometimes we have some clients saying like, well, what can I get away with? And don't get me wrong, in a virtual world, you might be able to get away with a little bit more of not having to worry about like cleaning the baseboards and all of that.
Yes.
But the message, I know, Abby, you've been giving to your sellers is it's important to still prep your home as if people were to be coming in.
Exactly. Because our goal is to make that virtual tour like they're in the house the most that we can. And right, we might not open every cupboard in the virtual tour. So it's okay if your mugs aren't perfectly placed, but we still want the counters to be emptied. We still want the floors to be cleaned. We still want rooms to be picked up. Things like that. And another thing to consider are those maybe ugly spaces, like your basement. If you have a full attic, your garage. A lot of times we, in a normal market, we'll call it, we don't photograph those spaces because they're not pretty. And when it comes to our photos, we want you to see the pretty kitchen or the updated master bath or the great backyard. But we need to photograph those and include them in our virtual tour now because buyers need to see that in order to move forward.
Mm-hmm. And those are the conversations that we're having with our sellers based on their game plan and what comfort level is. Are we going to be able to have an in-person showing? Are we going to be able to have virtual showings? What's going to work based on what the mandates allow, and then also based on what the seller's comfort level is, what the buyer's comfort level is, so that we can then guide the important items to prepare your house. So it's the same as clearing off counters and making sure the windows are clean and all those basic things. But we really are encouraging to go that next level to make sure that your home still is shining, because it might shine in different ways virtually versus in person.
Right. And I get a ton of questions about basements and garages because normally that's where everyone puts their stuff when they're going to list their house.
You're like, no one look at this.
Yes. And normally it's okay because it's not being photographed. And that's where it doesn't need to be, those spaces don't need to be picture perfect, like maybe your kitchen and your living room do. They just need to be visible so buyers can see, okay, there's not a huge crack in the foundation. There's not water in the basement. There's nothing scary down there. It's just a basement. So it doesn't need to be perfect. Those spaces don't need to be, but we still want to make sure buyers can see them.
Yes. And you have to be comfortable with buyers seeing them. Be like, I didn't think they'd see the basement. Even in the virtual tour, buyers want to see it.
Exactly.
So I think the last thing we were talking about too with prepping is pre-inspections. So one of the things that we have also found was that there was a while, so inspectors aren't deemed essential currently right now, but there's some individual inspectors that have qualified for essential status. Right. I told you guys, you don't have to know these things. Reach out depending on what day it is and we'll tell you who's who.
Yeah.
But some people are not able to have inspections. They might not be able to. So if you as a seller would like to hire an inspector to have an inspection report that you can provide to that buyer, they might be able to write an offer waiving the inspection if they feel comfortable, and if they can talk to that inspector personally about any questions or any concerns that they might have. They can write in, if there is a concern, they can write that into the initial negotiation. So this idea of a pre-inspection right now is something that we're really starting to see as a benefit and a value add to prepare your home for sale in the virtual market.
Right, because then you as the seller gets to choose the inspector as well. So if there's someone you know, or you have a friend of a friend that knows them, or you're able to do your research and you know that they're going to be doing things the right way, and at the end of the day it's your home, that just puts the ball in your court a little bit more with that inspection too.
Mm-hmm. And if you find an inspector perhaps that you used when you initially came through, they're going to have their old report, and it'll work really good.
Maybe it goes even quicker too, and they're only in your house for a shorter amount of time versus a more lengthy inspection.
Yes. And the buyer, even if you get a pre-inspection, the buyer might not like it, but again, it's worth a shot.
Yep.
All right. So
awesome.
Step number 2, prepare your house for the virtual world. All right, Abby, what's step number 3?
Step number 3 is we need to take those photos and that video and make it look the best that it can. Again, photographers, now we're in this, again, another world where things are changing constantly. Good news is our photographer, who we work with a lot, has been deemed essential and has been able to help us out with those photos and those videos. But if you're a seller and you say, I don't feel comfortable with that, we can work around it. Which is really important too. So option 1 is to have that photographer. The other option would be I send you a list to make sure that the pictures are the best they can, and maybe even the seller takes them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and the key with the photos is in the normal everyday market, which I don't know when we'll get back to it, but pre-virtual market, we would take the best shots of all the houses, of all this specific room and the best angles and all of that. Right now, sellers are just like, I need to see every nook and cranny. And so we've gone from how many photos? Oh yeah, buyers want to see every nook and cranny. How many buyers or how many pictures are we now allowed in the MLS?
We're up to like 50, something like that. It's a ton of photos just because of that reason that you said.
Mm-hmm. So previously we'd have about 25 photos.
25, yeah.
And you would think about it, like 3 different shots of the front, then you have the hallway. You would use these 25 photos up quickly. Well, now we want to see what is all the pictures of the basement, the electric panel, the sump pump. There's a radon. We want to see the radon system. Like there's so many different pictures that need to be there, and that we need to make sure that we are providing to those buyers in this virtual market that you may not have thought of, or that our previous photographers weren't even taking, but now we're going to. And the key is, guys, virtual market, we still want to impress them. We still want to make sure that our buyers are seeing really great shots of your house, and they're not being misled, and they're very well informed as a result of those photos.
Yes, exactly. And that's where, when people are looking online, just like they used to 6 months ago, they're going to look through them. And if they're dark and gloomy, they're going to move on to the next house. But now they're probably going to write that house off because they can't even go look at it if they wanted to. They have to use those pictures and then that video, which we talked about this in the last episode, but the video is so important as well, because when you have those pictures, you can say, okay, wow, the kitchen's updated. It's got granite, it's got stainless steel, but who knows what the open concept is like? Is it open to the dining room? Can I see my kids in the living room if they're playing, whatever it might be? And you can't get that from photos all the time. So that's why the video becomes so important, to see that layout so buyers can feel like they're walking through the house.
Mm-hmm. And again, the reason we started with the step number 1 is because we need to know, are you comfortable with a photographer? Are you comfortable with the video? Or are you like, Mandy, I'm like actually a photographer and I can do these. And it's like, okay, great, like that works too. But truthfully, we really do need photos. We need a lot of photos. We need them to be great because we have very high standards. And then we also need to make sure that that video is an option in some way to be able to really, like you're saying, capture that flow.
And we have had sellers who didn't feel comfortable with the photographer being there, or it was previous to them being considered essential. There
That's
was like a week or two period of time, and our sellers took the photos. And this is so not like us, because Mandy, you and I know our photos are like the most important thing in the world to us too. But I would give them step-by-step instructions. Hold your phone horizontally, make sure all the lights are on, make sure all the blinds are up. And then for the video, I need you to take these videos and look at these things, because I wanted to make sure that if they were taking the time to do that, then they got it right on the first try too. But since the photographers have been deemed essential, we have seen that open up, but it's 1,000% a possibility. And even with those videos and photos coming from the seller, they still sold with multiple offers over asking price. So it's pretty cool.
Yes, we know what buyers will need to see in this market, and it's very important that you're having those conversations with the agents to say, listen, we can't do business the way that we used to in this virtual market. We need to change up our photos and make sure we have video available for virtual showings.
Yeah, that's perfect. Love it.
So step number 4 is, how are we handling the showings? And so we've planned, number 1 being our game plan, 2 being prepare the houses, 3 being photos and videos. Number 4 is, what does it actually look like to go live in a virtual market? So we've alluded to it a little bit, but showings look different now. There are kind of, I guess, 2 different ways that we can do it, and how we've done it, both ways work great. But first is, you can have that pre-recorded video that we spoke about. So the pre-recorded video from a professional photographer, from you, but basically where you're walking through the house. I'm sure if you've looked at houses, the pictures look great, and then you're like, I just didn't like the way the kitchen flowed into the living room. I didn't see it that way. That is what the video will do. So it's this pre-recorded video, or you can go live on Zoom, on any video conferencing, where the seller can actually walk through with the listing agent, the buyer agent, and the seller is showing you through the house as we are all on a conference video call. So these showings look completely different than in person. And when you're requesting a showing, how we've handled it, and really it's kind of started a cascade, which I'm so happy we're all doing it, but that virtual tour does not go out to America. It is not out for everyone to see. We hold that tightly because we want to monitor what the feedback is in the showing. How many people are actually seeing it? Because we need to know, have 20 people showed your property? Like, isn't that a crazy thing to kind of wrap your head around? We just don't want to send them because that's important.
And this was something that, when we first heard, okay, it's Friday, on Sunday, you can no longer step into a house. We were like, what are we going to do? And we really sat back and said, okay, what are our options? And the Zoom, whether it's the live Zoom or the recorded video, or a combination of both. If the buyer says, hey, I loved the video, I feel really comfortable moving forward, but if I could Zoom with the seller just to maybe look at the cabinets or open the appliances or some things that I didn't see. So a combination is always an option too. And yes, we are keeping that video close to us, because if we go and post it on maybe Facebook or Zillow or whatever it might be, it could be 50 nosy neighbors watching the video, and it looks like 50 views to us, but none of them are valuable. And so what we want to do is say, okay, Mandy, here's the virtual tour you're showing. Here's your virtual tour. And now I can stay in contact with you to know, what did your buyers think? What is their feedback? Please fill out this feedback form and send it back to us. So it allows us to track that information so much better, to know, yep, we had 50 showings and 50 were real, or versus we don't even know who looked at it.
Exactly. And when we have the technology capabilities that we have right now, it's so great for us to be able to track, to be able to monitor, and to be able to give feedback, because that's how we're going to keep a pulse on the market in terms of, are we going to be having multiple offers and we need to do delayed negotiations, versus are we going to need to do a price adjustment? And that's so important, to not just utilize technology to get the message out, but to also utilize it to be able to analyze selling the property better.
Right, because you're exactly true. And our goal is to, as we've said a zillion times throughout all of our Friday with Friends episodes, is education, education, education. And so when a property hits the market, I want to be able to tell the seller as much information as I can. And for us to be able to say, these were all the views, this is where they came from. We even have a bit.ly link attached to our video so we can track even more information that way. But whatever info we can track, we want to do that.
Yes, I love it. And the final piece when it comes to showing your home is if you are in the category that we talked about first, where you're like, listen, I'm fine having a buyer come through my property after the accepted offer, after the inspection, even at all, make sure you are talking with your agent to see if it is possible. And if it is possible, how you go about that. Because it is possible, even in crazy land, that a buyer can go through a house. There's a lot of things that have to work, but if you're a buyer and you're like, listen, I do not want to enter this market unless I can see the property, be sure you have a conversation with your agent to say, listen, if that is the key factor that is restricting you from purchasing a home right now, there may be ways that we can get you into the property. Again,
right.
Everybody's got to agree. Everybody's got to be comfortable. Everybody's got to sign a bajillion waivers, but make sure you're just talking to your agent.
Yeah.
Depending on when you're listening to this, it might be allowed, it might not be allowed, but talk to your agent to see, because it might be possible.
Yep, and we're going to exhaust the heck out of all virtual options first. But yes, there's different ways that we can make sure we're following the rules and being safe, but also making buyers feel comfortable, for sure.
I love it. Okay, Abby, what's the final step 5 to selling your home in a virtual market?
So step 5 is basically the marketing side around it, because now that we're in this virtual world, virtual marketing becomes even more important. So social media, we've always been very active on social media for marketing our listings, but we're really taking that to another level. We're also doing virtual open houses, which is a possibility. So we can say, are you interested in checking out this house? Reach out to us and we can coordinate a virtual showing, a virtual open house, things like that.
Yes. And we've had many buyers, because the joke is that we're all sitting around in our houses that maybe we don't want to be in. So there's a lot of people looking online.
Yes.
It's like they've got time, and they're also like, I really wish that I had this in a house. And you're like, well, let's go look for one. So
I'm like, I'll take a pool and like a hot tub now that we're stuck at home.
So many things. And all the things that that we have been doing as a team. So we've always been doing, I'm sure if you're listening to this, you've probably seen one of our Facebook ads. You've seen that we do so much social marketing, not just, but for specific listings to help sell them, that we can now just twist it to be able to say, okay, let's market this open house for this property. And it's so important that everyone's understanding there is such a need for that in the virtual market, that make sure that you are asking agents and you're talking to agents about the paid advertising on social media to find these buyers that are out there looking, but just might not be finding your house in the traditional way.
And again, with that virtual tour and kind of keeping it close to us, there might be an option to just put the virtual link in a Facebook ad. And that could be a great way. Let's say I'm looking, we target that ad right to that person, which everybody knows is like when you search for Nike sneakers and then they're all over, right?
You're like, how do you know me?
How do you know? That's kind of the same idea with our advertisements. But if we put that link out there, then interested buyer might watch the video and then go away. We want to be able to track that information to convert those buyers for our sellers.
And again, to capture their information so we can really understand that this is a serious buyer. We can follow up with them to say, hey, what brought you in? How can we answer any questions? And, oh, I'm just a neighbor. It's like, okay, good. Not just a neighbor, because a neighbor might buy a house, but to know that if it's a serious inquiry that is a probable buyer for the property versus someone who's just looking around, which is great too. And we encourage that because we know it's fun.
Exactly. And we've also seen that our governing board, the Greater Rochester Association of Realtors, has done things to make this virtual world better. So for example, they now have virtual open house options. We're still working on some kinks, but they've got them. They've added more photos into the MLS so you can show those electrical boxes. They've added more characters into the public remarks section so we can add information about the virtual tours. So that's really nice as well, because we're not trying to do more but restricted. They're really working with us too. So that's awesome.
And I actually think that's a great point to kind of close it up, is that in this virtual market, there's new questions you need to ask yourself. There's new questions that you need to really be like, what am I comfortable with? Because you, the client, You are the most important. We want to hear you. We are being creative. We are trying to make things come together. But if it all falls on the fact that you as the seller and you as our clients are comfortable. And when we do that, we can say, okay, what do the mandates look like? How can we be sure that we're following all the rules and respecting everything that we are being told and honoring all of those rules and still bringing a buyer and seller together? And no matter when you're listening to this, if you're listening to this on April 24th, or if you're listening to this, months down the road, this virtual market is most likely still going to be here, and we're still going to have to go through these 5 steps so that you can really feel confident and you're not entering into this world of like, how do showings work? And what about inspectors? Oh, I feel comfortable with an appraiser coming into my house. Those questions, we do not, if you are asking those questions in the middle of the transaction, you have not prepared yourself adequately to start this process.
Exactly. And that's where, again, just to kind of recap, is there are a gajillion different options that we can. Gajillion's not a word. Not a word, but that's okay. There are so many different options that we are sitting down with our clients to say, what do you feel comfortable with? And let's tailor this experience so we get the job done and we can still help our clients reach their goals, but you're not feeling uncomfortable at any time throughout the process. So for sure, there's so many different options, and just reach out and we can open up a conversation about it.
Exactly. I love it. So hopefully you guys feel more confident when it comes to selling your home in a virtual market, because it's a lot. We are all in this together. Yes, it looks different for us all, but the more we can just be supporting each other and making sure we're all comfortable, that little bit of ease that we can have in our life will be there for us instead of a lot of the craziness that we have going on around us. So we're excited to be able to help however we can. If you have any questions at all, know that we are always here to help you, your friends, or your family. And so, thanks for tuning in.
Friday with.
So bad. We might have to nix this if we continue to go virtual Zooms. Hopefully we'll be together.
No, we can't.
Sorry, thank you for everyone for still listening to that battle, but we appreciate you. But Friday with Friends is our opportunity to talk about what's going on in the market and to answer any questions you might have, so that if you have any real estate needs, we would love the opportunity to be your realtor of choice and help you out however we can. So let us know. Friendonyourside.com is our website, and you can find us on the Friend team on Facebook. And as always, you know how to reach us.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks for tuning in.
Bye.